Welcome to the Otter Tail County Veterans Show. I'm Charlie Campa, your host, Otter Tail County Veterans Service Officer, with offices in New York Mills at 118 North Main Street, 385-5540. In Fergus Falls, we're located at 505 South Court Street, 998-8605. Today's program, I'd like to begin by, and I try to emphasize our home visits in Otter Tail County, the scope, the size of Otter Tail County being so large. A lot of senior veterans, dependents, and survivors are unable to travel to visit us at offices. We make house calls, home visits to assisted living facilities, long-term care facilities, housebound veterans, dependents, and survivors. And that's rather the theme of today's show, always looking out and reaching out for new services that have been around a while, but you and I may not be very familiar with. I'd like to introduce you to today's guest. Alicia Truax is with Lutheran Social Services. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks
Alicia,
for having me.
We were talking off camera about your specific job title. It kind of differs from other LSS coordinators regarding the Caregiver, Respite, the Senior Companion Program, Neighbor to Neighbor. First, about your background. How did you get involved with LSS?
Well, about going on 2 years in September, I took a job. I was working at, well, actually, I'll go way back. Mm-hmm. I taught actually 3 to 5 year olds. I was a teacher. I have a teaching degree, my bachelor's of science. And I taught 3 to 5 year olds for 20 years. And I decided to make my bachelor's of science degree go a different direction. And I chose the elderly side. So I was a housing director at a hospital for 2 assisted livings. And actually I also covered a non-emergent transport. Non-medical, I should say, non-emergent medical transport. They transported people to appointments. But I covered 3 departments. It was quite a big deal, but my father got sick. So I'm kind of going to go into, I was a caregiver. And it kind of has a lot to do with my job. I resigned from my job May 2nd in 2017 and then moved into my father's home to care for him. My mom had been gone 20 years. So as I cared for him, we knew where he was going to go, and about 4 months later he passed away. And I had applied to this job before he passed. I got an interview before he passed, and then he passed 2 days before my interview. So here I am. I interviewed for this position. Originally, my title was a Caregiver Respite Coordinator, and I came into Respite in September, but in January, I brought on a few other jobs. So my title right now is Caregiver Support and Companion Services. I'm one of 2 people in Lutheran Social Service that does, I call it a buffet of services. And the services are I feel it's an opportunity to say, hey, if this opportunity doesn't work for you, then maybe this is another opportunity. And really what I found is people want to help the community. So I kind of felt like I went with my passion. I did this for my dad. In that time with my dad, I did have a person give me a break and didn't realize how much I needed it myself. So then I went into both areas, and I feel really, really fortunate to be able to try and see how we can help in our community.
The majority of some seniors, especially single veterans or their spouses that I visit, are in need of some respite care. Their caregivers are in need of some respite care. It's a huge demand that I'm finding out there, and thank you so much for joining me today on the Otter Tail County Park Region Telephone Veterans Show. Let's start with respite care.
Okay.
What are all the services involved in respite care first?
In respite care, the services that are involved is, of course, short-term respite relief for a loved one, to actually give a caregiver a chance to get away. We also do counseling. We do via phone or email or face-to-face. We do coaching. We can do classes. So I teach Powerful Tools for Caregivers class, and I teach it a couple times a year. I am going to be teaching one in Perham, hopefully in October. We don't have a date set. It's a 6-week program, 90-minute class, so it's an hour and a half. And it is phenomenal because with all these tools, in that tool we give you 36 tools, different tools to help make your role as a caregiver longer. Basically, it's not about the care receiver, it's about getting the caregiver a break so the caregiver can continue to keep their loved one at home.
Can you give just a kind of an overview of those 36 highlights?
Oh, I don't know if I'll be able to list all 36, but I'll do my best to look. We teach communication skills, and there's many ways to talk. We teach an Akita way of speaking to your loved one. Instead of being in an attack mode, we teach you to be less defensive. We teach you how to breathe, take a break, and seriously, any doctor appointment is going to tell you, breathing. If it's 5 seconds, or if it's for 6 big breaths, 6 seconds long each breath, in and out, it can just completely change your whole demeanor.
Now, this is specifically for the caregiver?
This is for the caregiver, because it's not to say, our class does not, and this is a misconception, our class does not teach you how to be a better caregiver. It teaches you how to care for your loved one longer, and if you don't care for yourself, do certain things to decompress. Stats show that 60% of our care receivers pass before the caregiver. The caregiver pass before the care receiver. So the one you're caring for, if you're not you take on a lot of responsibility. You don't realize it's happening. Especially if you're a mother and a father and you're in your older ages, you don't want to put your kids out. You don't want to cause them stress. You say, I'm fine. That's not good. And the best thing you can do is be okay with accepting a little help. So I provide volunteers that come into the home for short-term respite that I talked about before. And I have them come into the home and just visit. They're called friendly visits. Excuse me, I better take a drink. They're called friendly visitors. They are not medically trained. Some of them do come with a background. We warn them to be very careful on their, what they do, but usually they can visit for 2 to 4 hours twice a week at a home for the caregiver to get out, get shopping, get something, maybe get nails done. Maybe a guy goes golfing. I have a guy that goes golfing because I have a caregiver or a volunteer that gives them a break. And it's way more than people realize. It does feel like an invasion of your home, but it really, I can't stress enough, it isn't. You have to treat it as it's something you're doing for him or her that you're caring for.
Very much. I forget the specific name of the initiative for, not just veterans, all senior citizens to be able to live independently in their home rather than long-term care or even assisted living facilities.
Yeah.
Your program is wonderful. I compliment you. How is your force of volunteers at this point?
I actually started in 2017 with 0 volunteers. I covered Otter Tail, Todd, and Wadena only at that time. And actually, I now cover Otter Tail, Todd, Wadena, Wilkin, and Traverse County. And I had 0 volunteers. And currently I have 5, and I have 3 new ones coming on board. And one or 2 are in Otter Tail County. So I'm really pushing a force towards East and all of Otter Tail. I have more senior companions, and all the volunteer positions are very similar. They're all friendly visitors in all the areas. It just depends on the need and where you're at and what's a better fit for you. Every volunteer that joins gets to be matched with a client, whether it's senior companion respite. Any volunteer that joins, because we kind of also have to make sure they're a good fit. So the caregiver and receiver get a chance to say, or just the client gets a chance to say, no, this isn't going to work. Or the volunteer can say the same thing. So we kind of are fair both ways.
In addition to the rewards of being a respite reliever, caregiver, if you will, relieving the caregiver, there are stipends involved too.
Yes.
For the volunteer.
Yes. In respite, really, we work under an AmeriCorps grant, which they work towards building up 450 hours with a client in a whole year, which actually amounts to an average of 10 hours a week. And every month they are given a living allowance of $200 stipend. And this is in respite volunteering. And then they, some of that 450 hours is training as well, which can be reading, videos. It can be talking at maybe talking about AmeriCorps. We count that as training hours. A volunteer can do that if they want to, they don't have to. Also they would do, every single one of the volunteers do a 20-hour training initially. Now in Senior Companion, they actually get a 35-cent mileage rate, because they are asked to drive to the client, so they get that home to the client, and then they get that client to wherever the client wants to go, if that client wants to go. Sometimes they don't want to go, and that's fine too. But they get a 35-cent mileage, and then the stipend is small, but it adds up. It's a $2.65 stipend, and it's not a whole lot, but it does add up. But the mileage is really what people do that for. That does build up sometimes. It depends. And neighbor to neighbor, if a volunteer who's trained for neighbor to neighbor, that's a totally private pay for the client, but what goes to the volunteer is each client they have, they get $50 a month. So if they have one client, they get just $50 a month. And then if they have two, they get $100. You can figure that one out. But they also get the 35 cents mileage. Yeah. So
I called you the other day about a veteran whose daughter is his caregiver.
Yes.
And you described on the telephone, we had a nice conversation, but what type of services would he or she be available for to give the daughter respite?
Depending on location, of course. All our volunteers also depend on location. I would provide short term. I would meet with her, and then I would figure out where we're at. I would have to meet with the caregiver. There are services for veterans as far as, like, we do counseling. We do, we do couples counseling, we do family counseling, we do youth counseling, individual counseling, not youth, individual counseling. We do youth counseling, by the way, in LSS, but in particular to vets. Behavioral health counseling. We also have financial counseling and debt management, specifically to the veterans, and then respite care, of course, and support. Like, I would introduce a volunteer. I think I answered your question.
Yes, you did.
Okay. I have so much information.
Well, let's continue on with that. The
Yes.
referral process. You
Yes.
handle all of the intakes for anyone, veterans or civilians that are in need of one
Yep.
of the three services, the respite care, the senior companion program, and neighbor to neighbor.
Yes, I do, and I say the referrals can be sent to me at my number, 218-640-7737, or they can be sent to our 800 number. And I don't have the last four. I'm going to shoot it out really quick. I think it's 1-888-488-4546. I may be wrong on that, but I can send a link on that too. Or just send a message. You can get to me, even if it's through Senior Companion or Neighbor to Neighbor. You can contact me through Caregiver, just at caregiver@lssmn.org. And if you specify, I want this, that's fine. I do all of them. That's what I love about it. Or if you run into a caregiver program coordinator in another county, they also can connect everybody to it. We're all aware of the neighbor to neighbor and that. So, also with the vets, there is a Link Vet. I think it's 1-800. You know that one, Link Vet. Yeah, .com or .org. I think I can't remember that, but you also utilize that. So we really stress that too.
That is a very good starting point. It's the telephone number is 1-888-LINK-VET.
Thank you. I said it different. Yeah.
You call it, and they can get the process rolling. There's going to be a short intake about your needs, just to inform Alicia when she does make contact with the individual, but it's all three of these programs. How long have they been around in existence?
Well, Lutheran Social Service officially, well, the programs all kind of came in separately, but it started in 1865. So Lutheran Social Service, as the oldest nonprofit, has been here 154 years. So, and they offer so many services from youth, disabled people, offering respite to people with disabilities as well as respite for the older group. Did I say adoption? And there's so many services that they cover to help the community. Wonderful company. I wanted to go back on the intake process and mention that the intake I do is I come out and I do have to collect information and data because I have to link every volunteer to the caregiver or to the client if they're for or senior companion and neighbor to neighbor. So I do the paperwork, and then that's kind of how I attach it to the AmeriCorps and their suggested programs. So.
Can you speak to the advantages of financial counseling through Lutheran Social Services? Many times we have veterans or families, it's maybe even the majority being the younger veterans that come back and from overseas, whatever kind of deployment, and are facing some financial straits just getting back into the workforce. Many times becoming delinquent on house payments, electrical bills, or just needing foodstuffs and in lieu of buying medication like that. You kind of combine all of the services that any individual household subscribes to, and assist them with getting their budget straightened out and taking a lot of pressure off the family.
Yeah. Well, I personally don't deal in the financial counseling, but I had flyers that I did not bring, and I will send you flyers to give them for financial counseling through Lutheran Social Service. But a lot of it is when the vet comes back, and to decompress and kind of give them a little security, and it aligns everything. I will give you flyers. I'm going to have to say that. I don't want to misspeak, but we have so many directions we can send you if we're not directly working with them. But yeah, it's to take a lot of that relief off of them. Yeah.
What else can we add in the closing moments of the show to get the word out about your respite care services primarily?
Well, I am finding that I am in a high need of volunteers for senior companion or caregiver respite. I'm getting a lot of calls on the east side of Otter Tail. East Otter Tail is really, I've been getting a lot of connections on people needing help going to Fargo or to doctor appointments. We do have a limit but sometimes if they come with like sometimes there's extra, we can figure it out. We have creative ways of working. You don't have to worry about that, but we are in a high need of senior companion and respite volunteers in Perham area, Dent. I was at the fair in Fergus Falls here, and I love that one, and I had every service of the 3 services out for me, and I had a lot of people saying, I want to help, but I leave for like 6 months of the year, I'm a snowbird. I said, you would probably be a great community companion. So you're not required, you won't get the mileage, you don't receive the rewards, but you help some of our clients that we have. And that gives back, and trust me, when you're volunteering, you are giving back, or you're getting as much as you're giving, because, it's very, very rewarding.
I'm not certain I think I may have mentioned it on previous shows. Otter Tail County Veteran Services provides van rides to Fargo for VA or affiliated medical appointments. It's a $30 round trip fee to more or less pay the drivers, but we're all over the county too. We also travel all over the county for incoming medical services.
Okay.
A wonderful van that can seat 7 people. Just call our office in Fergus Falls at 998-8605 if you're a veteran and need a ride to a medical facility in county, in Fargo, or on the occasion that something comes up where you are served by the St. Cloud Veterans Administration healthcare system. We'll get you down there too. But we've gone a above and beyond
Ah.
on today's program. And
Well, thank you. I would like information on that. I do have a list of transportation for Fergus Falls, but I don't have a lot for the East Otter Tail County, so
Okay.
that's good
We'll
information.
get together on that too.
Yes.
Anything else at all you'd like to add today?
No, but just contact me, feel free. My number is posted in a lot of places, or contact you and you can refer them to me. Any way I can get it out there that people in our community really, we want them. I think the projected thing in the future is people want to stay home. And when they're home, they're happier. I know my dad had the opportunity, his wishes, if it can be granted, it can't always be granted by people. And you can't feel guilty about that, but you do what you can do.
Perfect
For me, it
statement.
was a personal,
Absolutely.
you do what you can do, but my passion is, stay home as long as you can. That's what we're promoting. So being home as long as possible, but not having the guilt. Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia Truax with Lutheran Social Service Respite Care, the Senior Companion Program, and Neighbor to Neighbor, my guest today. Peace and prayers, friends, until we meet again.